So just to recap before we jump into the recording, I'll talk about where the idea came from. How did you validate it? Where did your first customer come from? Where did your next customers come from? Describe the moment you realized you had something. And then what is your credit card number? Sound good?
Sure thing.
We won't share that last bit with everybody, but that one's just for me. Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where sales leaders teach you what's working for them so you can build it yourself. Feeling ready to kick your sales into high gear? We're here to help. Check out our sales coaching and consulting services at predictablerevenue.com. Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your host, Colin Stewart, and today I'm joined by Paul Doerwald. He is the founder at Clockk, and we're talking product market fit. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Colin.
So today we're talking specifically about the product market fit journey of Clockk. And I'm excited this is a project that you've been working on for a long time.
Really
and one of the reasons, it's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show. And so talk to me about where the idea came from and when the idea came about. Because the one thing I really appreciate about your story is how persistent you've been.
Yeah. So the background is convoluted. It goes back a little less than 10 years now I was working on an idea that was tangentially related to what Clockk became, a kind of project dashboard for small consultancies. And I'd heard from someone that you should talk to your customers before you start coding. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. And this was before I knew that customer discovery was a thing. So I asked someone in my ICP, and this was before I knew what an ICP was, about my idea. And he listened to me and he said, yeah, I wouldn't use it. But then he paused. He paused and he said, you know what really annoys me? Timesheets. And at that moment, Clockk was born. So it was just because something I had said and what we were going to do, or that I had been thinking about, twigged something in his head. He's like, that would help me with timesheets. He didn't actually make that connection, but his brain did. And that was like, oh yeah, I can use the core of what I'm working on and work and put it toward Clockk.
Amazing. I had a similar experience with my first company, but I ignored all those people and I went, nah, they're idiots. Those jumps that they're making, irrelevant. So good on you for listening. I'm curious, what was the idea before Clockk was Clockk?
So one of the challenges I faced with my small consultancy was that we were working on a lot of projects at the same time. This is actually a core problem in Clockk that Clockk tries to solve. When you're jumping around between lots of things and you've got a bunch of people working for you, how do you schedule what you're going to work on over the course of a week when it involves 5 different projects? So 5 different Trello boards and a bunch of other tools as well. How do you get a holistic view of what you're going to do? Because all the Gantt chart tools, all the project planning charts are assuming that you're going to have 8 hours of time per resource on a task. And that's not actually reality. You might only be able to plan 16 hours for one person on this task this week. And then things are also going to change as you're going. So how do you actually get a holistic view across all the different things when there's constantly competing attention for what you're going to do?
Totally. And so you came to them with this big, complicated thing that's arguably or probably solving the pain that you were experiencing. And he went, nah, timesheets.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, yeah, it was fixing my itch. And I think people do have the itch or the pain that I was getting into, but I don't know. When you're a small consultancy, you're scrappy, you're figuring it out as you go, and you just deal with it. And you come up with it and you come up with your ways. And as you grow bigger, scale allows you to address those problems because you have more people on the project. So you can give them whole days or 2 days or whole weeks at a time to work on something. It's when you're really small and you've got lots of demands from your clients that you are jumping around a lot.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's a great example of finding a pain that resonates with you and going out to validate it. And people are like, I'm not in the same situation, but here is something along those lines that bothers me. It is a case study in listening to what your customers are or what the customer development people are saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it sounds like it was a pretty instantaneous one meeting and then, okay, I feel like I need to make the change, or was there a number of these?
So that meeting let me see that I was going on the wrong path, and there were some challenges anyway on that, and it let me switch. But I thought I need to do customer development on this new idea, on the time tracking idea, and so that opened up a whole bit about that. So,
Okay,
should I get into that?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
It's interesting. So I got the idea that I should work on time tracking because he felt a pain. I recognized the pain in myself. And I started talking to other people, and I heard that there was a pain around time tracking. So before we started coding, I'd probably spoken to about 100 people before we really got down to anything. 80 of them informally and 20 of them formally. And you've probably heard of the book Lean Customer Development by Cindy Alvarez.
Well, yeah, I actually had her on the podcast 30 episodes ago. She's amazing.
That would be awesome. Yeah, the book was super eye-opening for me. So I don't know if I should go into the core thing.
Go for it. Yeah.
What she said was, like, in the book, it was really powerful. She said there are basically 5 questions you need to ask. None of them are leading questions. So a leading question, this was really eye-opening for me as well, is any question to which the answer could be yes or no. So don't ask any question that has that kind of an answer, which is great. So the questions are, tell me how you do X today. Do you use any tools to get X done? Last time you did X, what were you doing immediately before and after? But this one was really exciting. If you could wave a magic wand and be able to do something you can't do today, what would it? And then the final question, is there anything else about X that I should have asked? So these are like great questions. And so I went armed with them into a bunch of customer development interviews. And it was interesting. So people talking about timesheets can actually get super emotional. Like one woman, a controller at an agency, was nearly in tears talking about timesheets because of the pain she had getting the people working in the agency to fill in their timesheets. She's like, I just want to send an invoice. Please do this. And like invoices are taking 3-4 weeks to send, and they need to make payroll. They need cash, and people just don't care. So like she was in pain. Other people would just get angry. And they're just like, and the thing that I heard over and over, people would say, is just make timesheets go away. Yeah, so that was like the key thing. Make them go away.
I was laughing there, not because I was laughing at this controller, but because I have sat with our controller and she has had a similar conversation with me a number of times, both from, development purposes for shred and things and trying to work out people's time. It's never a high priority task to do for anybody. Nobody loves tracking their time.
No.
And then the poor controller is like, I have to I'm an important person doing important work, but it relies on all these people doing this thing that they see as an extremely unimportant task that I have to effectively whip them to do. If you've ever seen The Office, it's that moment where like Michael has to sign like 3 different documents or 5 different pieces of paperwork. And it always takes him like 5 hours and everybody has to stay late. And it's like, it's that every month. So the controller can send her invoices.
Yeah. And it's because time tracking is a purely administrative task, and nobody wants to do admin work, or you do it later because you don't need to do admin work. It's not the stuff you're actually delivering. But the problem is that timesheets are critical. Anyone who runs a consultancy and says, oh, we don't do timesheets, they're lying to themselves or to their clients or something. Like, timesheets cannot be gotten away with. You need them. It's impossible to get rid of them for a ton of business, psychological, and technological reasons. Like, they just are critically necessary to run a consultancy.
And so talk to me about the validation process. It sounds like 100 conversations informally, 20 formal conversations using Cindy's method.
Yeah.
How did that go? What did that turn into?
Really well. So I got that constant feedback, make timesheets go away. But I felt like the idea was really well validated. But it was funny because it was, although people were telling me things and I'm following the method, it's interesting how your brain tells you the wrong thing, like wanted to hear something. And so even though they're telling me make timesheets go away, what I was hearing them say is make timesheets easier to do. And it took years until I actually figured out, no, they're literally telling me to make them go away. That was an interesting thing. But I also don't think, like, customer development, it's not something you can stop doing. You have to keep going at it because there's always more to learn as you're getting feedback on the product, on the market, and such.
Strongly agree there. Even as a services business, I still do customer development once a year as like make sure that we're still, I don't know, serving our customers and keeping up with the changes.
Yeah, that you got to know as a services business, are we doing the things that our customers want, or are they just sticking around because of inertia, or are they actually unhappy with what we're doing and they want something else and they just can't quit us?
Totally. Talk to me about the moment you landed your first customer.
So I don't know if it counts because my first customer is actually the same guy that I hired to do the UI UX design for Clockk. But it's an interesting story because he hated the idea of Clockk. I went to him, I've got this idea. He's like, that's a terrible idea. I hate it. There's no way I would ever install a tracker on my computer. No way. He actually had
I know
a bit
this
of
guy. I think I've met him.
Yeah. So, but he's a fabulous designer. I wanted to work with him. I'd seen his work. I'd seen his process. I'm like, I want that process part of my team. His name is Brian Jeffcock, and he's just fabulous. I recommend him highly. But he hated the idea of Clockk. But when we sat down to do work, I'm like, look, Brian, if you're going to work on Clockk, and I want you to, but I need you to feel the struggle that people who use Clockk have. And the only way you can feel that, you can't feel it with fake data. You have to feel it with real data. So I need you to install the trackers. You can uninstall them as soon as you're done, but I need you to do this. He's like, fine, I'll do it. So he installed the trackers. We put them aside. We worked on our thing for a couple hours. Then he went on to do his other client work. And that evening, I'm just sitting at home watching TV, and he sends me a message on Slack. He's like, okay, so I'm using Clockk, and this is a neat visualization of my day. I can actually see what clients I worked on when. And then there was a pause. Oh, Clockk just found 20 minutes that I didn't bill. So on his first day of using Clockk, Clockk made him enough money to more than pay for the first month of service. And from that point, he was hooked. And I've seen that kind of thing over and over again with new users. When they get Clockk and they start using it, it's like, bang. And another woman who I onboarded on our first meeting, because she had set up the trackers earlier, but we met a day later. She's like, dude, oh, wow. She saw a block for 2 hours and she said, I only billed like 45 minutes for that. So boom, again, she made a ton of money in her first day by using Clockk. And so Brian, he's still a customer now 6 years later. He hasn't churned. He uses Clockk literally every day.
That's amazing. That's really cool. I thought it was going to be one of those similar stories. Like I'm writing a book, it comes out in October, and it's still in progress, but the actual Amazon listing is up. And I was like, no way, it's not. And I Googled, and so not Googled that. I went into Amazon, I typed it in and I saw it there and I was like, oh, I bought my own book. So like I'm my own first customer. It's like, you cheated, Paul, but it's cool that he is still using it, even though you like paid him to build it. And that's really cool.
Yeah.
So talk to me about, obviously this hiring a UI designer to build something for you to get a customer is a pretty expensive cost to acquire a customer. Not a very efficient go-to-market motion. Where did the next customers come from?
Yeah, not efficient at all. So the next customers, to be honest, I don't really remember. They were both Canadian. So one was from Halifax and one was from Vancouver, but the Canadianness was just accidental. Our marketing has always been absolutely terrible. So it's remarkable they heard about us at all. But both of them came on, started paying, and both of them stuck around for a fairly long time and used Clockk quite regularly. And then after that, we spent a year in the AppSumo marketplace. And so you probably know about AppSumo. It's a bit of a mixed bag, and that's a whole conversation on its own that I'd be happy to have. But it actually worked fairly well for us. It was a great source of early users, and a lot of them gave really good feedback. Some of them not at all. So like it can be a really mixed bag, but the ones who are good were really excellent, and we still count a lot of those users among our regulars who continue to give great feedback and have said nice things about us. Today, most of our leads are coming from SEO. Way back, I wrote an article, What is AI Time Tracking? And that was before AI was really much of a thing. So when it started being a thing, AI time tracking already had good SEO juice on that keyword. So we just started to ramp up there, and signups ramp up. It's been modest, but that has been where a lot of signups came. And I just learned last week that ChatGPT is recommending us when people ask about time trackers as well. And I had been noticing an uptick in signups. So I think we're getting a lot of benefit from our SEO work all that time ago. And ChatGPT is working for us.
Huh. That's fantastic. You're the second person on the show that's mentioned that they're getting lead flow from ChatGPT.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear it, but she shared the conversation with me, and there it was. We were like entry number 4, but it gave exactly our value prop for people who work on a lot of projects at the same time. Like, yeah, we do. That's the problem we solve.
Amazing. I think as a founder trying to get a new project off the ground, it's really easy to get, blind to it. There's all these go-to-market channels. There's inbound, outbound, SEO, ads, Product Hunt, AppSumo. And I'm curious, I'd love to hear about your experience on AppSumo, because it sounds like an interesting one.
Like now? I can get into that, but it really is a conversation all on its own. And it gets into license agreement. It's complicated. I think we should save that one for another conversation. Happy to do it, but I need to be mentally prepared for that one, to have all the bullets and what was good and what was bad. But I have good feedback or good advice for anybody who would be interested in doing AppSumo and what to watch out for and how to really get the most out of it.
Yeah. What would the high level be for those that are listening?
Read the license terms carefully. I was lucky that I did, and it has saved me a lot of pain. If you have to cancel the lifetime deals, you're on the hook for a lot of money under the terms. So watch out for those. It's worth reading them. Be careful to, whatever product you offer, you should offer something that's cheap for you to provide, not expensive. We were good there. Look at the kind of users that AppSumo users are. There are a lot of hustlers, a lot of independent people who are making a buck here, making a buck there, and always looking for an edge. They don't have much loyalty, but they have a lot of software knowledge. So make sure that the AppSumo user is the right user for you. There was a really good natural fit for a lot of AppSumo people. A lot of people they're hustlers. They're making a deal. They're doing work. They're consultants. So Clockk is a natural fit for them. So make sure you're doing that, because there are some tools out there that are just like, this doesn't fit the market at all. And I found it really helpful to incentivize feedback, not necessarily paying them, but just giving like extra features in the app to get them to write fair. I always looked for fair and honest feedback, but using their AppSumo's own system of getting reviews, which gets you more attention, which gets more reviews and such, really worked well for me. So those are some high level things that I would suggest.
Fantastic. Thank you. And so your first couple of users, I'm curious, the first person who said, I hate timesheets, make them disappear, did they sign up as a customer?
I don't think so. A lot of people said that, and I chased a bunch of them down, but it's hard to get people to answer emails, and you're on the other side of that all the time.
Totally. I was just writing a post about this morning that'll go out to the founder newsletter tomorrow morning. Prospecting and the difference between prospecting for customer development interviews and prospecting for sales meetings. Customer
development is way easier. Anybody will talk to you when you're doing customer development, but when you're doing sales, it's like dead wall. It's hard to break through, and you've got to have a really good value prop.
Yeah. There's all these things. As soon as you step into a sales position, there's all these assumptions that you're making. And if one of those assumptions is wrong, your whole message falls flat. And the assumption could be about the targeting. It could be about the pain that the person is experiencing. It could be about how you solve that pain, or that they even want to solve that pain, which I guess feeds back into targeting. And so in order to have really great targeting, you need to do a ton of user research.
Yeah.
So it is this like, okay, which one do we do first? I'm a big fan of like customer development first, and then slowly work those folks into a sales pipeline, but slowly. Learn first.
And I think I'm a technical background, so a lot of market research, I just didn't understand why you would do it, or I could I understood why, but I didn't understand the questions that I was asking, and I didn't understand how to dig more to actually find out what's underneath, because I'm not used to thinking with a marketing hat on. And the same thing I think was less true, but still true for customer development. I hadn't done it before, so I didn't really know what questions I'm asking. I don't really know the implications and how to dig deeper. Now that I've been through it once and I'm on the other side, I'm well into a product, I could go back and do it again. I would do it with so much more intelligence and wisdom, and I would ask better questions. But you just have to do it, learn, and do it again. It's a trial and error kind of thing. And I think that's true for marketing. It's true for everything. You just get experience and you get better at it.
Totally. I'm a huge fan of using customer development interviews to really refine your targeting, whether you're going into the same market or trying to open up a new market or trying to add a new feature. Because they will, if you are solving something and you do have a product after the meeting, you say, hey, I think I've built something for you that you might like. Do you want to check it out?
I had a really good experience, actually. An SEO company called Positional. They had a really good process. So they did an advertisement on a newsletter I read for a survey. I filled in the survey. They contacted me as a result of the survey. I think the survey was simply like a meeting with. I'm like, that's fine. I'll do it because I'm interested, but they phrased it just right. And then they asked me a bunch of questions. And at the end of it, it's just like, so this is what we're doing. And they showed it to me. And it just naturally rolled into, what's your credit card number? And I'm like, I gave it right then and there for $100. And I came in cold and I was a customer. It was a really cool experience. I'm like, I want to do that next time.
Yeah. Fantastic. You'll have to forward that newsletter to me. I'm really curious to see what it looked like.
I remember the newsletter. It was Neil O'Grady's Demand Curve newsletter. But I wouldn't I wouldn't have the actual entry, but some Googling would probably fix it or find it.
Okay. Fair enough. I'll see if I can track it down. I want to wrap with, describe the moment that you realized you might have product market fit, that there's something here.
So it's actually, I couldn't say that there's a moment. It's actually been a really long, slow burn, but it is getting warmer and warmer. I thought I had a great product a few years ago until an advisor wisely said to me, you don't have many customers, Paul. So that's like kind of proof that your product isn't good. If it were good, you'd have customers. And I'm like, your logic is sound. There's something to this. So he recommended that I do the Sean Ellis test. I assume you know the Sean Ellis test.
Yes, but remind listeners.
Yeah, so it has that fundamental question that you've probably seen on a million SaaS sites. If you could no longer use this solution, would you be not disappointed, somewhat disappointed, or very disappointed? And the goal is that you want to get about 40% of your respondents saying that they'd be very disappointed. If you get that, then you've hit product market fit. So I set up the test in Clockk, and basically, like right away, we're bang above 40%. So like, this is a really good sign. So it suggests that Clockk had hit product market fit. But then there was still a lot of evidence saying that we had not hit product market fit. So we had really bad lead flow, poor conversions, low LTV, high churn, all super bad signs. So we had this conflicting information. So yeah, big discrepancy. So I'm like, okay, I have to get to the heart of this. Like, what's going on? Why do we have really high product market fit, yet all of these really bad metrics? So I started asking users at all stages of Clockk that were willing to talk to me. Like, I just wanted to ask them. So I'd offer them a $50 gift certificate, which has been pretty effective to incentivize people to give feedback. And so, like, without an incentive, hardly anyone would talk to me. But with the incentive for $50, enough people are willing to roll out of bed for that. So I learned a bunch of things, like some key things. One, our tracking wasn't nearly as good as I thought it was. Two, our UI was actually pretty frustrating. But then on the other hand, the people love Clockk. So it would be like the Bryans who on their first day are making more money. So for the people for whom the product just actually worked just right and they had just the right workflow and we're solving the problems, we're knocking it out of the park with them. And that's why we're getting this huge rating. So it's just basically like, we saw the tracking wasn't good, the UI is frustrating. So we've gone on this long process of steadily refining our tracking and improving it, steadily refining our UI to make it better and better. We've been on this long road. And if I were smart, I would have given up on Clockk a long time ago. But it's these fans that we have who absolutely love Clockk that keep me going. And every now and then a new one pops up and I get a new person filling in the PMF survey. And there's like, I can't believe this software is here. I absolutely love it. It's what I've been looking for. And in fact, so it kind of takes me to the end of this. Like, where did we know we had product market fit? I think it might actually even be this morning. So I had 2 calls today with customers. Both of them had churned or not signed up. I think they're both churns. And I talked to them and they talked about what they loved about Clockk. And it's like, these are exactly the problems we set out to solve 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. You're jumping between projects and it's hard to keep track of what you're doing. We solved that. And their complaints are actually fair and minor in the grand scheme of things. Like, one guy, he really needs an integration with his project management tool. We don't have that. Our competition does. And our competition is good enough. So he went with that. But he would really rather use Clockk because Clockk is better and it works more the way he works. So like, bang, we've got it. We've got this guy. We're just in that, we just need to add a feature for him. And then the other one, he's like, your Clockk is amazing software. It has all of the accuracy that I want, but sometimes I just need the job done and I can't wait to do the accuracy. I wish it were like faster in certain ways. I'm like, we're actually working on some features that are going to make that part easier as well, so we can catch even more data earlier on with less manual tasks. So yeah, 2 calls, both of them were churns. Both of them are like, if you did this, we would be there again. And they want to help and they're excited and they're seeing the value that we provide. So yeah, I think today we're there. Now we just need to up the deal flow, and we've got the software, we've got the product.
That's fantastic. There's nothing better than somebody leaning in and being like, yeah, I really love what you built. There's nothing like, obviously the money is good and to have the kind of success that comes with it. But I don't know, for me, there's nothing more satisfying than like helping somebody. So you do this big, complicated mental Lego project, and then you actually manage to get it built out somehow and it doesn't catch on fire. And you're like, I helped somebody. Like this little, yeah.
And Clockk was just way harder to do than I thought it was going to be 6 years ago. I thought, oh yeah, this will be pretty simple. We'll whip together some code to do this. My goodness, this has been the hardest project of my life. Not just on a business level, but on a technical level. There have been more challenges than I ever would have expected, and they just keep coming. And we've been knocking them off piece by piece, and it's been overwhelming. And sometimes I haven't known if we'd get to the other side of the mountain. But from a technical perspective, like, we're there. Like, it's pretty amazing to look back at all the challenges we've faced and where we've come. And it's thanks to our users who have been willing to stop and give us feedback along the way, like continuing that customer development all along, constantly talking. A friend of mine who's also pretty renowned, Caitlin Bourgoin, says, whoever's closest to the customer wins. And that's been my goal for the last years, is like, how close can I get to the customer so I know what they want better than any of my competition does. And yeah, I feel like we're there now.
I love it. Paul, if people want to learn more about Clockk or try signing up for the product, what's the best place for them to check it out?
Clockk.com, Clockk with 2 Ks, because if I had Clockk with 1 K, it would have cost me $1 million for the domain. So Clockk.com. You can just sign up there, free trial. We're actually making the free trial even cooler. You can, by doing things, you add more days to your free trial. So that free trial could be anywhere between 2 and 25 days long.
Right on. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Paul. I really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody for listening. We'll catch you all next week.
Thanks very much, Colin.